The restaurant was buzzing on a warm Saturday arvo in Brisbane. The kind of humid heat that clung to your shirt even after the sun dipped below the horizon, making every sip of beer feel like a small mercy. Inside the Boundary Brewhouse, a big, open-plan pub with exposed brick walls, ceiling fans spinning lazily overhead, and that unmistakable smell of grilled meat and spilled lager, the place was packed. Families crammed around long tables, kids in footy jerseys kicking feet under chairs, tradies fresh off the tools still in high vis, and couples trying to pretend they weren't knackered from the week. Steaks sizzled on the grill behind the bar, sending up plumes of smoke that carried the sharp tang of char and garlic butter. Pots clinked as coldies were pulled, frosted schooners of 4X Gold and Great Northern sliding across the timber counter. Waitstaff in black polos darted between tables balancing trays loaded with parmas the size of hubcaps, golden crumb, thick ham, melted cheese, and a lake of Napoli sauce, all served with a mountain of chips dusted in chicken salt. Laughter rolled through the room in waves, blokes telling yarns, nans teasing grandkids about eating their greens, the occasional "Oi, settle down" from a parent. Jake and Sarah had claimed a corner booth near the windows, the one spot that felt halfway private. It was meant to be their rare night out, just the two of them plus the kids. Date night with training wheels, sure, but still a break from the relentless grind of work, school runs, and the endless loop of washing, cooking, and collapsing into bed at 9. They'd booked it weeks ago. Sarah had even put on the nice top she'd bought last year and never worn, the emerald green one that made her eyes pop. Jake had scrubbed up too. Clean jeans, fresh shirt, the good aftershave he usually saved for footy finals. The kids, Tyler, 7 going on 17, and Mia, 4 and full of opinions, were happy enough with their chicken nuggets and chips, dipping everything in sauce and arguing over who got the last potato scallop. For about 10 minutes it had felt almost normal. Almost peaceful. Then Karen arrived. She hadn't been invited. Not really. Jake had mentioned the dinner in passing during a phone call earlier in the week. Yeah, Mum, we're heading to the Brewhouse Saturday. Bit of a family thing, and somehow that had translated in her mind to an open invitation. She'd rocked up 20 minutes after they sat down, handbag swinging, floral blouse tucked into high-waisted jeans, hair freshly set. Thought I'd join yous, she'd announced, sliding into the booth without waiting for anyone to shuffle over. Haven't seen my grandbabies all week. Sarah had forced a smile, the tight one she reserved for these moments. Jake had sighed into his beer and signaled the waiter for an extra chair. Now here they were. Karen was already on her 3rd glass of Sauv Blanc. The bottle, house white, nothing fancy, sat sweating in an ice bucket she'd insisted on. Her cheeks had that flushed glow that came from cheap wine and righteous certainty. Every few minutes she'd flick her eyes toward Sarah's side of the table, watching like a hawk. It started small, the way it always did. Sarah was cutting up Tyler's steak, careful strips, the way he liked it, no fat left on because he'd just push it around and whine. She'd added a dollop of mash on the side, knowing he'd eat more if it was mixed in. Perfectly reasonable, perfectly normal mum stuff. Karen leaned across without warning, fork in hand, and started rearranging the pieces on Tyler's plate. Hang on, love, she said, voice loud enough to carry over the pub noise. You've got to cut it smaller than that. He'll choke otherwise. And look, too much sauce. He doesn't need all that tomato. Back in my day we kept it simple. Meat and 3 veg, none of this fancy slop. Sarah's hand froze mid-cut. Jake felt the shift in the air like a cold change rolling in off the bay. Oi, Mum, he muttered under his breath, leaning toward her so the kids wouldn't catch it. Ease up. You're not helping. Karen huffed, a short, dismissive sound she'd perfected over decades. She took a sip of wine, eyes never leaving Sarah's plate. I'm just saying, love. She's got no idea how to feed a growing boy properly. Tyler's skinny as a rake. Needs proper nutrition, not this, whatever this is. She gestured vaguely at the parma Sarah had ordered for herself, as if the dish itself was evidence of moral failure. Sarah's fork clattered against the edge of her plate. Not loud, but sharp enough to make Mia look up from her drawing on the kids' menu. Sarah had been copping these digs for months, years, if she was honest. The snide comments about her roast being a bit dry, her house being a tad untidy, her choice of daycare a bit LAX. Every visit, every phone call, every bloody Christmas. She'd bitten her tongue so many times it hurt. Tonight, though, the wine and the heat in the public setting made the words feel closer to the surface. Jake rubbed his temples, thumb and forefinger pressing hard. He could sense the storm coming the way you feel a southerly buster before the first gust hits. The pub noise seemed to fade around their table, the laughter and clatter retreating like the tide going out before a big set. "Mum," he tried again, quieter this time, pleading. "Let it go. We're just trying to have a feed." Karen straightened, chin up. "I'm only looking out for my grandson, Jakey. Someone has to." Sarah exhaled through her nose, slow and controlled. Her knuckles went white around the fork handle. The storm wasn't just coming anymore. It was already here. Things boiled over when Karen reached across the table for what felt like the 100th time that night. Tyler had managed to smear a decent streak of tomato sauce across his chin while attacking his nuggets with the focus only a 7-year-old can muster. The boy was mid-bite, cheeks puffed like a chipmunk, when Karen's napkin, crisp white, still folded neatly from the serviette ring, darted out like a striking snake. She dabbed at his face without asking, without even a "hold still, bub." Just leaned right over Sarah's plate, arm extended, invading the space like it was her God-given right. "There you go, darling," she cooed, voice syrupy sweet in that way that made Sarah's skin crawl. "Can't have you looking like a little grubber, can we? Nan's got you sorted." Sarah's jaw tightened so hard she could feel her back teeth grinding. The napkin came away smeared red. Tyler blinked up at his nan, confused but too polite, or too hungry, to protest. Mia, sensing the shift, stopped swinging her legs under the table and stared wide-eyed between the adults. Sarah set her knife down slowly, deliberately. The clink of metal on porcelain cut through the pub din like a warning shot. "Karen," she said, voice low but steady, the kind of calm that comes right before a cyclone warning. "He's not a bloody baby. Let me parent my own kid." The words hung there for a beat. Karen froze mid-reach, napkin still hovering like she hadn't quite processed the rebuke. Then her face flushed a deeper shade of crimson, part wine, part indignation. She pulled her hand back but didn't lower it fully, as if holding on to the gesture might keep her authority intact. "Well, someone has to show you how it's done, Darl," she shot back, volume rising just enough to carry to the next table. A bloke in a Broncos cap 2 boots over glanced up from his Palmer, eyebrow cocked. "You're letting him run wild half the time. Sauce everywhere, talking with his mouth full. Back when Jakey was little, we had manners. We had rules. None of this, free-for-all nonsense." Sarah's laugh was short, bitter, no humor in it. "Run wild. He's eating dinner, Karen. Not setting fire to the joint." She leaned forward, elbows on the table now, voice dropping but gaining edge. "And maybe if you stopped criticizing every single thing I do, he'd feel a bit more relaxed around his own grandmother." Karen's eyes narrowed. She straightened in her seat, smoothing her blouse like armor. "I raised 3 boys on my own, love. I know what works. You're too soft. Always have been. Tyler needs a firm hand, not this coddling." The table felt smaller, the air thicker. Jake had been picking at his steak, trying to stay out of it, but now his fork was still. He stared at his plate like it might offer an escape route. The kids had gone quiet, Tyler with sauce still on his chin, Mia clutching her chicken nugget like a security blanket. Sarah opened her mouth to fire back, something about boundaries, about not needing permission to raise her own children, but Karen wasn't done. She reached again, this time for the sauce bottle on Sarah's side. "Here, let's just wipe the rest off properly." That was it. Sarah snapped. She slapped her palm flat on the table, not hard, but firm enough to make the glasses jump. "Stop touching my child." Each word was clipped, deliberate. "You've been at this all night. All week. All bloody year. Back off." Karen recoiled like she'd been slapped. Her mouth opened and closed, searching for the right comeback. The pub noise seemed to dim around them, conversations faltering as nearby tables caught the rising tension. A kid at the next booth whispered loudly to his mum, "Are they fighting?" Jake finally moved. He slammed his hand down on the table, harder than Sarah had. Beer sloshed over the rim of his schooner, foam spilling across the wood and dripping onto his jeans. The crash echoed, cutting through the room like a drop tray. "Enough," he barked, voice carrying right across the joint. Heads turned. Knives and forks froze midair. The bloke with the Broncos cap stopped chewing. Even the kitchen clatter seemed to pause. "I've had a bloody gutful of this." He glared between them, first at his mum, then at Sarah, then back again. His face was flushed, neck cords standing out. For a second it looked like he might keep going, words piling up behind his teeth. Instead he just repeated, quieter but no less furious, "Enough." The whole place went dead quiet. No laughter, no clinking glasses, no sizzle from the grill that quite reached their corner. just the hum of the ceiling fans and the distant thump of music from the front bar. Sarah stared at him, eyes wide. Hurt flashed there first, sharp, raw, before the anger rushed in to fill the gap. Karen's smirk flickered for half a second, a smug little twist of the lips like she'd finally won a point. Then it hit her, Jake hadn't just told them to stop. He'd lumped her in with the problem. Her own son. Jake looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. His hand was still flat on the table, beer pooling around his fingers. He didn't move it, didn't look at either of them. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable, broken only by the soft clatter of a dropped fork somewhere else in the room. Then, like he'd been waiting for the perfect cue, the waiter appeared. Sarah stared at him. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just Jake's face. Red, furious, mouth still half open from the shout that had silenced the entire pub. His eyes were locked somewhere between her and the table, avoiding both women now. The hand he'd slammed down stayed there, fingers splayed in a puddle of his own spilled beer, knuckles white. Hurt hit her first. Not the sharp, hot anger she'd expected, but something colder, deeper. Like stepping into the freezer aisle at Coles and feeling the chill sink straight into your bones. He hadn't said, "Mum, stop," or "Sarah, calm down." He'd said, "I don't want to see your mother," and that "you're" landed like a slap. As if Karen's behavior was Sarah's fault. As if Sarah was the problem to be managed, the one dragging drama into his night out. As if, after everything, he was choosing sides and it wasn't hers. Her eyes stung. She blinked hard once, refusing to let tears fall here, in front of the kids, in front of the whole bloody restaurant that was now watching like it was free theater. Tyler's lower lip trembled. He'd picked up on the quiet the way kids do, the sudden absence of noise louder than any yelling. Mia clutched her nugget so tight sauce squeezed between her fingers. Then the hurt hardened. Anger rushed in behind it, fast and clean. Sarah's spine straightened. She felt every eye in the place on her, on him, and for once she didn't care. Let him look. Let him see. Karen, meanwhile, had frozen with that half-smirk still clinging to her lips. For maybe 2 seconds she looked triumphant, like her son had finally backed her up, like the scales had tipped in her favor after months of subtle warfare. Her shoulders relaxed a fraction. She even started to reach for her wine glass again, as if the matter was settled. Then it registered. Jake hadn't said, "I've had enough of Sarah." He'd said he'd had a gutful of this, the whole mess, and the way his glare had swept from Karen to Sarah and back again made it crystal clear, he was done with both of them. The smirk vanished so fast it was almost comical. Karen's mouth dropped open. Her hand hovered over the stem of the glass, then withdrew. Color drained from her cheeks, leaving 2 bright wine-flushed spots like bad blusher. She looked suddenly smaller. The woman who'd marched in uninvited, rearranged plates, dispensed unsolicited wisdom like it was oxygen, now sat with her hands in her lap, lips working silently. For the first time all night, she had nothing to say. The silence stretched on, thick as the humidity outside. Ceiling fans spun overhead, stirring the warm air without cooling it. Somewhere a glass clinked. A chair scraped. But around their table, nothing moved. Then Mitch appeared. The waiter, early 20s, black apron tied neat, name badge gleaming, materialized at Karen's elbow like he'd been summoned by the sheer weight of awkwardness. He'd been circling the room all night, clearing plates, topping waters, diffusing minor dramas with the calm efficiency of someone who'd seen every flavor of family implosion. He'd clocked this one building from the moment Karen slid into the booth uninvited. "Everything all right here, ma'am?" He asked Karen directly, voice even, professional, but pitched loud enough that half the room could hear without straining. His eyes flicked briefly to Jake, then Sarah, then the kids, assessing damage. "Need me to call security?" The question landed like a brick through a window. Karen blinked. Once. Twice. Her mouth opened but no sound came out at first. Security. For her. The idea was so absurd it short-circuited her indignation. She'd come here to help, to guide, to be the matriarch. Now a kid barely old enough to vote was asking if she needed to be removed. No, of course not," she managed, voice cracking on the last word. "We're fine. Just, family. You know." Mitch didn't smile, didn't nod, just raised one eyebrow a millimeter, a tiny, perfect gesture that said he'd heard that line before and wasn't buying it tonight. Jake looked like he wanted to disappear. His shoulders hunched. The hand still on the table curled into a loose fist, then relaxed. Beer dripped steadily onto the floor now, a small dark puddle forming under the table edge. He opened his mouth, closed it. No words came. What could he say? Sorry, I yelled in front of the whole pub. Sorry, I made it sound like my wife's the issue. Sorry, Mum, but you're part of the problem too. He said nothing. Sarah felt the shift inside her settle into something final. Not rage anymore, just clarity. She pushed her chair back slowly. The legs scraped the floorboards. She stood. The movement broke the spell. Heads turned again, softer this time, curious rather than shocked. A few people pretended to go back to their meals, but forks moved slower. Sarah reached down without looking at Jake or Karen. Tyler, love, finish that last chip if you want it. Her voice was quiet, steady. Mia, hands. She took their small hands in hers, one sticky, one still clutching a half-eaten nugget, and stepped away from the table. We're done, she said. Not loud, not dramatic, just fact. She didn't look back, didn't wait for Jake to speak, didn't give Karen the satisfaction of another word. She walked toward the exit, kids trailing close, Tyler glancing over his shoulder once with big worried eyes. The door swung open, letting in a rush of warm night air smelling of eucalypt and distant river. Then it closed behind them. Inside, the pub exhaled. Conversation crept back, tentative at first, then louder. Someone laughed at another table, too sharp. Knives scraped plates again. Karen started blubbering. Soft, hiccuping apologies aimed at Mitch. I didn't mean, she's always so sensitive. Mitch listened politely for 5 seconds, then raised that same eyebrow again and walked off to clear a neighboring table. Jake sat alone now, staring at the empty seats across from him. His schooner was half empty, foam collapsed into a sad ring. The steak on his plate had gone cold. Outside in the car park, engine lights flared red as Sarah reversed out of the spot. Jake pushed back from the table, chair legs screeching, and stumbled after them, but he was already too late. The silence stretched, thick as Vegemite on fresh bread. It wasn't the comfortable quiet of people enjoying a meal, it was the kind that presses in on your ears, makes your skin prickle. Every table within 20 feet had gone still. Forks hovered. A kid's sippy cup clinked softly against a plate. Even the ceiling fans seemed to slow, as if the whole brewhouse was holding its breath. Sarah stood first. Slow, deliberate, like she was moving through water. She didn't shove her chair back hard, no dramatic scrape, no flung napkin. Just pushed it out enough to stand straight, shoulders square. Her emerald top caught the low pendant lights, making the green shimmer for a second like it was alive. She looked down at the kids. Tyler's eyes were huge, sauce still smeared on his chin where Karen's napkin had missed the mark. Mia had both hands wrapped around Sarah's thigh now, nugget abandoned on her plate. Tyler, love, Sarah said quietly, wipe your mouth with your sleeve if you need to. We're going. Her voice was soft, almost gentle, the way you talk to spooked animals. She reached for their hands, Tyler's sticky right one, Mia's left, and laced her fingers through theirs without looking at the adults. Karen opened her mouth. Sarah, darl, don't be. Sarah didn't even glance her way. The dismissal was complete. Jake sat frozen, beer-soaked hand still flat on the table like it had been glued there. His mouth worked once, twice, but nothing came out. The words he'd barked, I don't want to see your mother, hung in the air between them like smoke you can still smell long after the fire's out. Sarah met his eyes for maybe 2 seconds. Not angry anymore, not hurt in the flashy, shouting way. Just, done. The look said everything. You picked your side, mate. Even if you didn't mean to. Even if you were trying to stop the fight. You said it, and I heard it. Then she turned, walked, kids in tow. Tyler kept glancing back over his shoulder, confused, mouth half open like he wanted to ask why Nan was crying already. Mia just trotted to keep up, little shoes scuffing the floorboards. The path to the door felt longer than it should have, past the bar, past the families who suddenly found their plates fascinating, past the young couple near the window who exchanged a quick, oh shit, look. The door swung open. Warm night air rushed in, eucalypt, distant barbecue smoke, the faint metallic tang of the Brisbane River on the breeze. Then it closed behind them with a soft hydraulic sigh. Inside, the pub exhaled. A low murmur started up again, tentative at first. Someone coughed. A laugh broke from the far corner, too loud, forced. Knives scraped plates. The sizzle from the grill picked up like nothing had happened. But eyes kept flicking back to the corner booth. No one looked at Jake or Karen the same. Karen crumpled. Not dramatically, no wailing, no table thumping. Just folded in on herself. Shoulders hunched, hands twisting in her lap. Tears came fast, mascara already starting to track. She turned to Mitch, who'd lingered nearby like a referee waiting for the final whistle. I didn't mean, she started, voice cracking. I was only trying to help. She's always so sensitive. Jakey knows I don't mean any harm. Tell her, Mitch, tell her I. Mitch raised one eyebrow again, that same millimeter lift that said he'd heard every variation of "I was only trying to help" from every Karen in every pub in Brisbane. He didn't interrupt, just let her trail off into hiccuping apologies aimed at no one in particular. After a few seconds he gave a small, polite nod, "I'll get you some water, ma'am," and walked off, black apron strings swinging. Jake didn't move for a full minute. Then he shoved back from the table so hard the chair legs screeched. Beer dripped steadily onto the floor now, a dark stain spreading. He stood, looked at the empty seats, at his mum's bowed head, at the half-eaten parma going cold. His face was grey. He looked 10 years older than when they'd sat down. He bolted out through the door, boots thumping on the timber. The car park was lit by sodium lamps, orange pools on the asphalt. Sarah's white Prado was already backing out of the spot near the bottle shop. Tail lights flared red. He jogged, waving one arm like that might stop physics. "Sarah, wait, babe, hang on." The driver's window was down. She didn't slow, just glanced over as she straightened the wheel. "You pick your side, mate," she said through the open window. Voice calm, final. "Fix it with your mum, or don't bother coming home." The words landed square in his chest. He stopped dead. The Prado rolled forward, tires crunching gravel, then hit the smooth bitumen of the access road. Brake lights glowed once more as she indicated left. Then gone. Tail lights shrinking toward the main road, swallowed by the night. Jake stood there alone under the lamps, hands hanging useless at his sides. A southerly breeze kicked up, carrying the faint smell of river mud and grilled meat from inside. Somewhere a car horn blared. Life kept moving. Inside the brewhouse, the buzz had returned to normal volume. Families ordered dessert. Blokes called for another round. The waiter cleared the corner table, plates stacked, glasses collected, the puddle of beer wiped away with a quick swipe of a rag. No trace left except the memory. Another classic Aussie family blow-up, served up hot with a side of regret. The kind that lingers longer than the hangover.